The Young and the Restless, spoilers. Billy Abbott had always been known for his impulsive nature, but nothing could have prepared him for the rage that erupted inside him when Michael and Victor casually mentioned his mother, Jill. The mere mention of her name in their conversation sparked a fire in Billy, one that had been smoldering beneath the surface for far too long. It wasn't just the mention of Jill that infuriated Billy, it was the knowledge that they seemed to possess. Victor, with his smug demeanor, revealed that they knew exactly where Jill was. Heart Hospital in London. This was a secret so tightly kept that even Billy, her own son, had been in the dark. The realization that these men, especially Victor, knew more about his mother's condition than he did was like a punch to the gut. Victor, ever the manipulator, didn't stop there. He leaned in closer, cold smile curling on his lips as he delivered the next blow. He told Billy that he intended to visit Jill personally to inform her of every single one of Billy's failures. It was a statement laden with malice, one that cut through Billy like a knife. But the worst part was when Victor casually mentioned that Jill was probably already aware of Billy's shortcomings. This was the ultimate humiliation. To be exposed as a failure in front of the one person whose opinion mattered most to him. Mother. Jill had always been Billy's fiercest protector and his harshest critic. Even from afar, she kept a close eye on her son, silently observing his life and his struggle. Billy knew that Jill's health had been fragile, but hearing that she was in a heart hospital was a shock. However, knowing his mother as well as he did, Billy also knew that once she regained her strength, she would be back, stronger and more determined than ever. She would face Victor, not as a victim, but as a formidable adversary. The thought of his mother having to endure any more stress because of Victor's meddling was unbearable for Billy. The rage that had been building inside Billy reached a boiling point. He could no longer hold back the torrent of emotions that had been threatening to consume him. His voice, low and dangerous, cut through the tension in the room as he demanded that they leave his mother alone. If Victor wanted a fight, Billy was more than willing to give it to him. But his mother was off limits. Jill had suffered enough, and Billy was determined to protect her at all costs. Without warning, Billy lunged at Victor, his hands wrapping around the older man's throat. The force of the attack was so sudden and unexpected that Victor was slammed against the wall, his back hitting the cold surface with a thud. Billy's grip tightened as he brought his face closer to Victor's, his eyes burning with a murderous intensity. The words that followed were laced with venom, each one delivered with a chilling calmness that belied the fury raging within him. "You want to die," Billy hissed. Victor, for perhaps the first time in a long while, found himself caught off guard. He had dealt with many adversaries in his life, but Billy's raw, unbridled rage was something else entirely. The younger man's hands tightened around his throat. For a moment, Victor wondered if this was it. Billy would actually kill him. But even in the face of this violent outburst, Victor's mind was racing, calculating his next move. Victor had always prided himself on his ability to remain calm under pressure, to think clearly, even when faced with the most dangerous situations. This was no different. Despite the pressure on his windpipe and the very real threat that Billy posed, Victor knew that panic would only make things worse. He needed to defuse the situation, find a way out without further provoking Billy's wrath. In that moment, Victor's survival instincts kicked in. He forced himself to remain calm, hands slowly coming up in a place-hating gesture. He wasn't afraid of Billy, not exactly, but he knew that pushing him any further would be a mistake. Billy was on the edge, teetering dangerously close to the point of no return, and Victor had no intention of being the one to push him over. With a voice that was remarkably steady given the circumstances, Victor managed to speak. "Billy, think about what you're doing," he said, his tone devoid of the usual arrogance that accompanied his words. "This isn't the way. You don't want to do something you'll regret." For a long moment, it seemed as though Billy might not heed Victor's words. The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with the threat of violence. But then, slowly, Billy's grip began to loosen. The rage that had consumed him started to ebb, replaced by a cold, hard realization. Victor wasn't worth it. Killing him wouldn't solve anything. It would only make things worse. With a final shove, Billy released Victor, sending him stumbling back against the wall. Step back, chest heaving, as he tries to regain control of his emotions. Fury in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a steely determination. He had made his point. Victor knew now that he was serious, that he wouldn't hesitate to protect his mother by any means necessary. Victor, for his part, straightened his jacket, expression unreadable. He had survived the encounter, but he knew that the situation had changed. Billy wasn't the same reckless young man he had dealt with in the past. This was someone who had been pushed to the brink. Someone who would do whatever it took to protect those he loved. It was a side of Billy that Victor hadn't anticipated, and it forced him to rethink his approach. As Billy stood there, his fists still clenched at his sides, Victor knew that a direct confrontation with him was no longer a viable option. Billy was too volatile, too unpredictable. Instead, Victor would need to be more cunning, more strategic in his dealings.